So this right here happened over the weekend.
Yo, they roll.
Yo,
Fucking punks!
forget about them in history. That seems very silly to me. I think this is really important, and I think it's.
My son's have becoming anti-viewers. I don't know about that one.
Loser, shame!
Lafayette that they defaced. That would be Andrew Jackson that they defaced. Wow. These people, you know, they always pick statues for some odd reason. I mean, it's like a perpetual rage is what these people have. I would say that these people just aren't happy, and that's why they want to make everybody around them feel like they're in some form of misery. But then again, though, it's pretty obvious that their parents definitely brought them up wrong. But you also have the school system to blame for this, and I'll kind of give you guys a reason why here in a second. And I forgot to mention the White House. They actually were able to get to the actual entrance to the White House, the actual outside effort, the gates and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, Biden wasn't there. I remember they did this back in 2020. Former President Trump, he was actually put in the bunker. And, of course, a lot of people made fun of him. But they were actually trying to physically attack the White House and all the areas around. If you've ever been to the White House, then you'll know this. Not like you see on TV where it's like there's like nothing surrounding it. You get like a top visual of it. If you've actually been to the White House, then you'll know that it does not exactly look the way it's always presented in films and in movies. Yeah, some things are actually around that particular piece of real estate. But then again, though, that's where we're at. And of course, we'll be talking about why it is that in the long term, this entire thing will not work out, because obviously the radical left, they're trying to court Sunni Muslims who don't exactly like a lot of their ideology, but we'll be explaining that here in a second as well. There's also something else, too, that needs to be pointed out. You guys remember all the times that I've said that if something like a CW was to break out, it would never be red on blue or blue on red. It would, for the most part, be blue on blue. We'll talk about that as well, so make sure you guys stick around for the full video. That kind of looks like an interaction. I have to say it that way because of the YouTube algorithm. If you say certain words a certain way, it's like something about the algorithm just kind of trips. It's kind of how they censor you, but still at the same time, that's actually what it looks like. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, fiery but mostly peaceful protest, stuff like that. You know, the typical stuff that we saw back in 2020 with the George Floyd riots, the Kenosha riots. You'll hear me refer to them as the Antifa riots here again in a second, because I had to edit this clip in a little bit later than normal. Yeah, I'm kind of a ham that way. But still at the same time, we got to talk about this, and you'll see exactly the Antifa section more towards the end, because this is obviously going to be a problem for the people that they're trying to court at this moment in time. I've done a few videos on this, and they'll all be in the description box, as well as one from Greg Foreman, who also talked about the identity politics thing, and he made some very, very good points, so I advise you guys watch it. But here's the deal. In 2020, these people had a focused enemy. Their focused enemy was the orange guy, Donald Trump. All Donald Trump had to do was just send out a tweet, and next thing you know, these people went absolutely crazy. And of course, when the whole George Floyd situation went on, I guess their anger just kind of built up. I, of course, have always said that what really happened was that those who were protesting on behalf of George Floyd's death, their protest, for the most part, while it looked like it could have gotten out of hand, was for the most part relatively tame. And what happened was that Antifa showed up. Then next thing you know, it turned to a great big giant hornet's nest, riots. Of course, the opportunism kicked in. They were going all around the country. And then eventually with Jacob Blake, Kenosha, all that stuff. And of course, we know about the Kenosha Kid, Kyle Rittenhouse. Eventually, it all kind of just came to a halt. The difference this time around is that these people typically tend to be united against the current president himself, Joe Biden, who, of course, was not even at the White House. He was actually in his home in Rehoboth Beach in Delaware. Funny how it is this guy never wants to actually sit in Washington, D.C. and do his job, especially when we're looking at World War III. We need somebody in the situation. We're authentic at the same time. We all know it's probably Anthony Blinken or some of Obama's people that are actually in there. But still at the same time, the effort was focused in, and I mean, it was focused in on anger towards the orange guy. The orange guy, believe it or not, has actually been quiet. And you see, I've talked about this before on this channel, that the indictments are actually helping him out with poll numbers. However, there is something else too that has actually been helping him out and is actually helping him out at this moment in time. And the thing that's helping him out is the fact that he's not on Twitter. He's on Truth Social. No liberals go to Truth Social. Not that many of them even have an account there. So therefore, his messages are used there rather than on Twitter. Another thing is he's not in office right now, so therefore they can now center their blame at the current administration, Joe Biden, who, by the way, they were never really truly a fan of. They just used him as a vessel to get the orange guy out of office. You ask anybody if they're an actual Biden supporter, they'll just say something like, well, at least he ain't Trump. That's what they'll typically tend to do. But of course, Joe Biden's approval rating amongst Arabs is actually very low, and his approval rating amongst the left is also very low as well. I brought this up in previous videos. But the thing is this right here, and the thing that people need to kind of understand is that, this situation right here, they don't have a focused enemy like they did before, or the enemy that they're focused on was the one that they helped usher into office. And of course, people are beginning to feel the wrath of this, and people are beginning to get tired of this, like this gentleman here.
The White House gates have been vandalized. The streets are strewn with trash, but the biggest insult is here in Lafayette Park with General Lafayette. The Palestinian flag was raised, and it still remains. And they have this Free Palestinian graffiti. They have it here. The General Lafayette and his compatriots, Free Palestine, they have raised the Palestinian flag on the grounds of the White House at Lafayette Park. And walk around with me. Look at this. I've never been so outraged. They've raised the Palestinian flag. And more graffiti. More graffiti. Look at this. Free Palestine. You see this? Free Palestine. And look at this sign. Look at this sign. Decolonize Palestine. Decolonize the United States. Workers' World Party. It is unreal. It is unreal. I hate to even touch it. This is what we've become. How can we allow this? How can the law enforcement watch for somebody to raise the Palestinian flag on the ground of the people's house, and we got to pay for this cleanup?
The man is obviously angry about the situation, and I'm pretty sure most people who are watching this video see this, and they probably get a little upset too. I was upset, obviously, when I saw it, but I was more along the lines of it's just exactly what I expected to see, especially given the fact that we have all this woke, progressive nonsense, and now, of course, you've got people taking a certain side of it, and they think at the end of the day that these people are obviously going to lump in with it, but I'll explain to you guys in this video why that's not the case and why it won't work out in the long run. So let's go ahead and think about the current situation that you have. Right now, you have a war in Israel. Right there in the Gaza Strip, you have Hamas. You have Israel is bombing the hell out of them. You also have grifters on both the right and the left who are getting views off this. One of them, of course, is Jackson Hinkle, who has now been banned on a lot of sites. According to him, he has been, but now he's going to be charging you $4 a month to follow him. You see, it's one great big giant cash grab. You see, this is the problem. When you decide that you want to simp for somebody who's always wanted to destroy America, that right there being Sunni Muslims, Shiite Muslims, after a while, they eventually begin to turn on you, which is kind of weird that I said it like that, because at the end of the day, they already hate you. They already hate what you stand for. There are some, of course, who come to the United States and are very successful, but of course they still care about the homeland that they came from, the homeland of origin. I can appreciate that. I can respect that. And obviously, seeing how it is that I'm more so pro-Israel in this situation, more so pro-Israel, period, you would probably think that I'm automatically the infidel in these people's eyes, which of course I am, and quite frankly, I don't mind. I've been to war against these people twice, so therefore it does not bother me to hear them scream death to America, because at the end of the day, while I do know that it hurts and I know that we're better than the nations in the Middle East, it still at the same time makes me think to myself, you're never really and truly going to bring this country down unless you have some form of help. However, this little alliance that these people have with the left right now is eventually going to fall apart. But we got to go back in time to see exactly how it was that we got to this situation as far as with the radical left itself. I will do a much more comprehensive video on this at another day. But the thing is this right here. Identity politics, and I mentioned this earlier, and I mentioned this in the previous video that I did, well, it wasn't the previous video, it was the video before the previous video. I've released so many, it's absolutely ridiculous. Why it is that it's ultimately going to fail, and of course, these people, they really and truly don't seem to understand, at least those on the left, that they are inviting in the devil himself into their lives. But of course, they don't believe in the devil, but they're about to find out exactly what the devil is. And that is, of course, why it is that I'm not sympathetic to their plight. These people will go out of their way to harm you. These people will strap a bomb to their chest and come after you. They believe if they take you out in an act of combat that they automatically go to heaven, which of course is not the case. But still at the same time, yeah, here we are once again in basically a redo of 2020. So how do we get here? Well, I could sit here and play you an entire montage of all the times that Barack Obama said that America was no longer a Christian nation. I could give you all the examples of Barack Obama basically placating to the Middle East. But of course, if you ask the radical left about this, they will say that he fired Predator drones at them constantly, which of course, Predator drones can be effective when taking out targets. But the problem is this here. When you're going after people who want to destroy America, it's actually better to get on the ground and take these people in, arrest them, interrogate them. Oh, wait, that's right. They were all against the whole idea of enhanced interrogation. They were against the idea of waterboarding, which, of course, there are other ways to get information out of people besides laying them down their back, putting a towel over their face, and dumping water on it. There are other ways to actually do this, which, of course, we can't really talk about here on YouTube, because if we talk about it here on YouTube, this channel will be in trouble, and quite frankly, I don't want that to happen. I'll talk more about that on Rumble and stuff like that. But still, at the same time, I could give you all, and I mean all the examples of where Obama went wrong and where he purposely went wrong or where he was completely out of touch. But it was 2016 when Hillary Clinton basically said that she wanted an importation of immigrants, about 500% total. And then you have what we call the situation at the border. And of course, we have people coming in that, quite frankly, we don't know who are coming in. We have an idea of where they're coming from. And then you've got a governor like Kim Reynolds in Iowa who just endorsed the Bootgate man, saying stuff like, oh, we would be willing to take in Afghans from the situation, of course, because people were trying to leave Afghanistan after the Taliban took back over. Of course, this was after Joe Biden completely bungled the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Don't get me started on that. But of course, we have a lot of very, very weak-willed politicians. So you got to ask yourself a question. When is this entire thing going to break? Then we get to Mr. Bernie Sanders. Now, there are a lot of people in U.S. Congress right now, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, the squad, who are very, very, very anti-American, which of course makes me think that maybe we might have put an accidental jihad on ourselves, or maybe it was purposeful. I'm not entirely sure yet. I don't really know just yet. Actually, I do know the answer, but I don't want to say it out loud because, once again, it's YouTube. But still, at the same time, we got to go back in time to Bernie Sanders and his entire shift to the left, bringing more and more and more progressives into the fold. And yeah, I think that Bernie Sanders actually helped cause a lot of this problem by inflaming a certain set of people out there who would have more than likely stayed home on election night 2020. But of course, we got to hear Bernie turn right back around and basically grovel and try to stay loyal to his Democrat donors. Of course, the progressives don't like him now, and you'll see why here in a second.
Rashida Tlaib released a video on Friday. I want you to watch part of it.
Mr. President, the American people are not with you on this one. We will remember in 2024.
That last screen said Joe Biden supported the genocide of the Palestinian people. I know you know the definition of genocide. It is defined as a crime committed with intent to destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Do you think that's what Israel is doing here?
What's going on right now is a horror show. We don't have to quibble about words. Thousands of men, women, and children are being killed. It has got to end right now. And one of the things that concerns me, Donna, is there has not been enough talk about what right-wing Republicans are doing right now. They don't want any aid to go to the Palestinians. Somebody should be talking about that. Somebody should be talking about how Trump wants to expel Palestinians from this country. So it's, you can disagree with Joe Biden, but on his worst day, he'll be 100 times better than where Trump and the right-wing Republicans.
So you think that Rashida Tlaib should save her ire for Trump and the right wing, and not her fellow Democrat?
Rashida is a friend of mine. Her family comes from Palestine. I think she's been shaken, as all of us are, about what is going on right there, right now.
Yeah,
we have to address that humanitarian crisis. But if anyone thinks that Trump is going to be better than Biden on this issue, or any other issue for that matter, I think they are sorely mistaken.
And I understand that. I also understand, and I know you know, that words matter. And I want to ask about what she
I
said.
don't, look, hey, look,
Well-
words matter, but what matters more, Dana, is you have a horrible humanitarian disaster.
They're divided. They're broke. Once again, you got to go to identity politics and see that these people are held together by a certain list of demands. They're held together by single issues. For example, we'll use the topic of those who are Muslim real quick. By the way, YouTube, I'm not saying this in a negative connotation. I'm just telling you what it is that people actually want. So in this case here, what they typically tend to do is they typically tend to vote Democrat every election cycle. I said in a previous video it was for the most part because the communities actually let them alone. That's part of it, but really the real reason why they vote Democrat is because the Democratic Party typically tries to go a different direction when it comes to the whole Israel-Palestine situation. They typically tend to placate to the whole two-state solution thing. And of course, neocons, Republicans, and America First, we oftentimes love to tell these people there's really no such thing as a two-state solution. It wouldn't work out. So that's one of the main reasons why it is that they vote Democrat. And of course, Rashida Tlaib, she's a little bit upset about this. She's a wild card, and obviously you cannot control her. There's also video footage of her from previous rallies. But the thing that you have to keep in mind when it comes to this topic is that these people actually are super, super, super right-wing when it comes to social issues, but yet they still continue to vote Democrat. In the previous video that I did on this very topic, we brought up the whole Dearborn, Michigan thing where the people in the neighborhood were upset. People in the school district were pissed off about the woke school curriculum, the gender studies stuff. They were upset about that. They were protesting. More than likely, those people would, in fact, stay home, but they actually did not in 2022. Tlaib actually got less votes in this situation, but still at the same time, they still ended up supporting the Democratic Party. But of course, this situation occurs, and now these people are upset, and it's led to what is really one of the lowest approval ratings in Joe Biden's entire administration. Then we get to white liberals, and we get to those who are, let's just say, of color that are liberals. Most liberals of color, liberal women, they go out there and they say stuff like, well, I want to be able to vote for, I need to vote so that way I can get an abortion if needs be. Of course, this is it's abortion as birth control. They don't really care about foreign policy issues. They don't really care about the issues that, quite frankly, affect your life. They just don't want any responsibility. Most women of color who vote, and Greg Foreman talked about this, and I'll try to link his video in the description box, they wear shirts, stuff like, when black women vote, we save democracy. Then you ask them why they're voting, and they're saying, well, I want to be able to secure my voting rights. Okay, you just voted, and you're voting to secure your voting rights. I mean, you already had the right to vote. Very weird. Then you ask them, of course, about what, it's assistance, government assistance, handouts. So basically, you don't want to work. You don't want to be. You don't want to be a provider. Fact of the matter is this right here: these people here, the vast majority of these people, they don't want to be productive at all, and they're looking to get something out of the country rather than do something for the country. Yes, I said that. I really truly don't care. Hispanics, on the other hand, they typically, for the most part, when they get here, they do their best to go to work, raise a family, and all that stuff there. And at one point in time, they were voting Republican. Of course, this was during the Bush days. And eventually, Hispanics are starting to get more and more conservative. One of the reasons why it is that they vote the way they do is because they have had issues with cartels and crap in Mexico. So therefore, they automatically have a fear of stuff like guns and stuff. So they hear that, and they typically tend to go vote Democrat as a result. But of course, they're starting to shift because they're starting to wake up to see the reality of the world. I don't think I need to discuss any other groups, but I figured I would go over that really, really quick before we got to the next topic. Now, why in the world would this right here be the case? Why in the world would these people be so, so unbrilliant when it comes to the topic of how to vote?
And so when you look at the data that was provided in this poll, it talks about how people feel. And when people decide whether they're going to the poll or whether they're not going to the poll, it's all about how you feel in that moment. And so while the facts may not align with their feelings are dictating their reality. Their reality is that they said that they feel better, or they felt better when Trump was in office. But we've been trying to push back. We've got some very popular African-American artists that are out here saying things like, oh, I got checks when Trump was in office. I want those checks again, not understanding that that really came from Congress. So we've got a couple of things, the perception issue, and then we also have an issue as it relates to civics in this country.
What she is saying is that people of color, especially those who live in more diverse states, which typically tend to be the battleground states, like, for example, the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, for the most part, outside of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, is actually very white. But of course, when you actually go into the cities itself, you see that it's a little bit more diverse. Something else, too, to consider. I'll give you another example. New York. New York State, for the most part, is pretty well white, for the exception of the city itself and, of course, Buffalo. Then you get to places like L.A., of course. And, of course, California is not a battleground state or anything, but who the hell knows? It could be here near soon. But the thing you got to understand is that what she's trying to say is that these people who are much more, or live in these much more diverse areas are voting basically off their feelings and not actual facts. We warned you about this, and of course, Joe Biden is the feelings president. He is the feelings over facts president. You will probably hear me say that again here in a second. Basically, she just called her own constituents dumb. This right here was in response to a New York Times Siena poll, which has an A, has like an A- grade when it comes to polling. And of course, there was another poll that came out from YouGov that CBS ran, some B+. Actually, YouGov is a little bit more accurate than Siena, but it was showing that Donald Trump is up 51-48, which I really don't buy that number. I think it's probably something along the lines of like 47, 44, 49, 47. Typically, when a poll is almost fully full to 100%, you already know that it's kind of let's just say a little bit wishy-washy, not exactly trustworthy. And of course, you see the poll that I'm showing you guys from Siena, where apparently Trump is actually beating Biden in every single battleground state, for the exception of Wisconsin, which I think it's very, very weird that of all the battleground states, Wisconsin's the one that he's trailing in. So I kind of take this poll with a little bit of grain of salt. I need to see a little bit more before I actually make a true, honest-to-God determination when it comes to this topic. But what that lady was saying earlier was civics. She was talking about being able to teach people in the classroom. Let me say this. Civics needs to be required in every single high school setting. It needs to be required. People need to know this. Also, something else too, I personally believe that you need to be able to at least take some form of a test before you can even be allowed to vote. Yes, I'm that hardcore, and I think we need to raise the voting age to 21. And I also believe that college, I also believe you don't need to be allowed to go to college until you reach 21. You need to spend a few years in the work world and actually see how things operate. Most of these people are blissfully unaware of what they're doing, and they're blissfully unaware of the situation around them. So this right here does not surprise me that when you send somebody in who's pro-Israel, who's undercover to a big city during these protests, that you get responses like this.
Undercover at a Free Palestine rally to see what they're really about.
Hey, how would you describe a Jew? They're devils. Who's at fault?
The Jews. The Jews. Always been a problem.
So if they do take Palestine, where do the 12 million Jews go?
Go to hell. Yeah, that's the literal slogan.
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Okay, if we free Palestine, where do the Jews go?
Hey, go back to Brooklyn, bitch!
Shout out to Kanye. He was right.
How do I know that you are...
That I'm not a Jew?
Get the fuck out of my face! Get out of my fuck!
The Hamas, with the action they've taken, it's not a terrorist attack.
I am queer for Palestine, yes.
What do you think about the argument when people are saying in Gaza they kill gay people?
It's very unsafe to be queer here, too.
But they're not actually killing gay people for being gay by law, right? The way it is in Gaza?
But why do we keep going back to, Gaza?
Why is there such a basis for them to have a homeland? Nobody else has a homeland.
Where are you from, if you don't mind me asking?
My family's from Afghanistan.
In Afghanistan, by the way, so that's a Muslim country, right?
Predominantly, yes.
So would you consider that your homeland?
Yes, so I guess I do have a claim over that, but you can't claim Israel.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But here's the thing. You heard all of that. Bad language, you heard all of that. You heard everything that had to be said. Now, I've taken a long time to explain to you why the situation is the way it is. Now, let me go ahead and explain to you why it will not work. I want to give you an example, okay? A really good example. This where I came from Andy No, the man on the ground in Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. He's around the Antifa types all the time. I want you to watch this exchange, roughly a little over a minute. And then there's another exchange I want you guys to watch. Pay very close attention to this.
This guy is trying to propagate anti-LGBTQ propaganda. He's trying to tell children that they are not allowed to be trans.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're not. They're not. Stop your man, bro. No. Black nail polish on is a man, bro. Stop talking. Stop talking. In some religions, you can't do that. Yeah, you have to respect that decision. But in religions, yeah. But in some religions, they expect that. But in our religion, you can't do that. So we don't agree with your faith. Thank you. What religion are you? What religion are you? Catholic. What are you then? What do you identify yourself as something, my bro? What do you identify as? Go on. What do you identify as? He doesn't have a religion. Alright, what do you identify yourself as? Okay. Yeah, you don't know. Listen. Where you from? Where you from? Wait, what do you identify yourself as? You don't know how allowed to be filming.
This girl was obviously quite based. You can't do that with us. You can't do that. You see, this is another reason why it is that this entire thing will not work. It's another reason why it is this alliance will fall apart. White liberals obviously do not understand that there are cultures that do not like them or actually like what they stand for. You see, anytime I've ever mentioned the phrase CW, as in Civil War, I've always said that it would be blue on blue. And what I mean by blue on blue is that it would be mostly, for the most part, minority groups, which we will get to here in a second to close the video out. This is why the situation will not work. But I want you to pay very close attention to this next exchange with these same two gentlemen.
Prove any of your points because you actually have no evidence
Free
for any.
Palestine!
Do you know about half of these kids?
Trying to propagate anti-LGBTQ propaganda. He's trying to tell children that they're not allowed to be trans.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're not. They're not.
You're wrong.
Come on, bro. Listen. In some religions, you can't do that. Yeah, you have to respect that decision. 3 Abrahamic religions, yeah.
LGBTQ
But in
is forbidden,
some religions they accept that, but in our religion you can't do that.
What religion are you? What religion are you?
Catholic.
I'm not Catholic.
What are you then?
He doesn't have a religion. He's Antifa.
What's your identifier?
This little coward
What's
wearing
your
his mask. He
identifier?
doesn't have a religion.
What's your
He
identifier?
just wants to
Okay.
cause mayhem.
Boss, wait, shut up.
No,
Wait,
shut
where you from?
Leave the guy alone, bro.
Where you from?
That's right.
All you got to do is ask these people follow-up questions. If you just simply ask them follow-up questions, they fall apart under scrutiny. That's all you have to do. Of course, you do have those people like Vosh and Destiny, those guys who actually understand how to debate. And of course, they always bum rush you. And of course, they try to use certain little shticks to where you weren't going to be able to like catch up with them or whatnot. But still, at the same time, I'm pretty sure you guys kind of know where I'm getting at. Fact of the matter is that identity politics is falling apart. And you're seeing right now why it is that this entire alliance will not work. You see, what's going on is that white libs are hoping that Arabs will join them in this fight, when in reality, Arabs may be inclined to go with them in this fight to say no to the current administration, but then they'll turn right back around and they'll turn on these people because they know that these people's lifestyle absolutely disgusts them. As I said before, those who are of Arab origin typically tend to vote Democrat for the sole reason of the Israel stance, because Republicans always take the pro-Israel stance and Democrats always take the more moderate stance. So therefore, Muslims typically tend to vote for them. But Muslims at the exact same time also vote for the right to be able to do what they can in their own community. But you obviously saw this blow up in Dearborn, Michigan. Now, let's go ahead and set the scene. Did you guys see the little video that I rolled and the B-roll footage of the ones that were getting on the plane in Afghanistan? By the way, some of this stuff actually came from overseas. I forgot to actually put that in there. My bad. I apologize for that. But here's the thing, and I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to what I'm about to say. You have a bunch of people being brought in, and then you have this immigrant crisis. We have this border crisis going on right now. Well, we don't know who the hell is coming in. So the next thing you know, you've got Hispanics with Arab, mostly Sunni Muslims, who don't exactly like gays. And then you've got white liberals, and they're all going to the same spot. Chicago, New York, Boston. I heard that I heard somebody in Chicago scream that they had already been to Denver and Denver had already sent their overall payload. I haven't really seen anything out of Denver or even LA recently, but they're sending them all these very, very liberal cities, which, by the way, also tend to be very, very white. What are you going to do with these people? Are you going to suddenly give them all these government subsidies? Are you going to suddenly give them the clothes off? And by the way, a lot of people don't seem to realize that winter is about to set in. So that means you're going to have a lot of people outside of shelters. Don't worry, we'll talk about that tomorrow too. The fact of the matter is that you have opened up a complete total can of worms, and the chaos is only going to get way worse. The thing is this right here. Once you bring these people over here who already hate the United States, who already hate America, and then you put them around people who already don't jive with them, that they're absolutely disgusted with, people of certain beliefs and certain lifestyles, you're asking for total chaos. So next year, seeing how it is, we're probably going to get a race war again, because they always show up every election cycle. Instead of it being Black Lives Matter and black people with white liberals, you could very, very well see a bunch of factions fighting one another. As I have said before, when it comes to the topic of CW, there's never going to be a CW between the right and the left. It's just going to be between the left. Blue voters. Moderate blue, light blue, dark blue, dark blue. That right there is what it's going to be. It's going to be chaos between those groups because every single one of them are starting to fall apart at the seam because they're all starting to figure out, once you get to know one another, that they all really and truly actually hate one another. And with that right there being said, guys, I want to go ahead and close this video out now. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sound off in the comment section, and I will see you guys later.